So Jason, for the people that don't know your backstory, I mean, you're great on social media, so I think a lot of people probably know who you are, but
Thank you.
talk about how you got into SEO. I think it's an interesting thing.
So SEO, I think like most people that get into SEO, you don't choose SEO, SEO chooses you. So it started way back 25 years ago, maybe, 2001. And I was a mobile DJ. I just got out of the United States Air Force, served my country for 4 years. I was going to college in Vegas. That's where I was living at the time. I was studying for the LSAT. I was contemplating going to law school. I had a side hustle, which was a mobile DJ. I would DJ weddings and parties and stuff on the weekends. And so as a entrepreneur, I guess, in the making, I had an idea to build a website where brides that were coming to Vegas would plan their wedding. And so built a website, or I paid somebody to build a website. It was called vegasweddingmall.com. After about 3 months of nobody coming to the site, I called the developer. I'm like, hey, I think something's broken. Do you have to turn something on? What's going on here? And he's like, no, that's like called like SEO or something. And I don't know how to do that. Like, not too many people know how to do that. And again, this was 2001. And so that is where the journey started. It starts out as an interest, or actually it starts out as a need, I guess, in that case. Then it became an interest. Then it became a passion. Then now it's more of an obsession, I guess. So
I'd say that. I mean, you even have the shirt. That's why I'm wearing the shirt.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my God.
It's my well-worn shirt, as Aaron puts it. I wear it all the time. You send me a couple of them. I love them. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
The name, so I Love SEO is great. It reminds me of I Love Marketing, that podcast.
Yes.
Joe Polish and Dean Jackson. I don't know if you ever listened to that.
Of course.
But
yeah.
I wonder, was that the inspiration, or did you have some other idea?
You know what? Like I followed Joe. I've met Joe a couple of times. Genesis. I mean, what's his company that he has? It's not Genesis. It
does start with the G, I think.
Yes.
Now that you say that.
Genius
Network.
Genius
That's
Network,
right. Yeah.
Right? But no, it wasn't about that at all. It's actually like, I think I had just, I'm like, you know what? I say I love SEO so often. I'm like, let me just see if the .com was available. And so it wasn't available, but I was able to convince the person that owned it previously to sell it to me at the time. And so now I just haven't.
I like it. It is interesting. So I've been in a few of those conversations where you buy the domain.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I don't know how your negotiation went, but they started really, really high, and I end up offering like $25 more than like it almost always goes this way.
Yeah.
I give them a really low ball offer. They give a really high offer. I keep saying no, and they're like, okay, sure, I'll let it go for whatever, a little bit more than what you originally offered.
Totally.
Is that how it went, or is it different?
Well, this one wasn't too bad. I think I ended up paying a couple $1,000s for that one. Others, like my last name, Hennessey.com, that one, the opening bid was like $500,000.
Oh my gosh.
Because this was years ago, because they thought that Hennessey, the cognac, would buy it because it's spelled almost the same, but it has an E at the end, versus not having the E. And so they thought they were sitting on gold, and they were just going to come and offer them millions of dollars for the domain. And so eventually, after years, I'm just like, let me just reach out to them. And so they came in with a price that was like 6 figures. I think I negotiated down to like $50,000, and I was able to get Hennessey.com.
Nice. That's not an easy one to get. That's really awesome.
No.
I can't get Mutrix.com because it's like my great something, or he's an artist.
Okay.
And he's a, I wouldn't call him a famous artist, but he's a pretty well-known artist, and so he won't let go of Mutrix.com. It drives me nuts. I thought for sure I'd be able to get Mutrix.com. It's such a rare name.
Yes, it is.
It's not like Hennessey. But so it's interesting because you've been with essentially SEO, we'll call it generally SEO, but now I think maybe more digital marketing, which is with AI has expanded even more. It's wild what you've seen, the transition from where you started to now.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever thought about how different it is now compared to back then?
Yeah. I mean, the core principles are, for the most part, the same, right? You're trying to write content that satisfies the intent of what people are searching for, right? Whether it's on Google or YouTube or wherever you're placing your content, right? But the one thing that I will say is back when I first got started, it was so much easier, right? Because there wasn't so much competition. And the Google algorithm at the time was not as complicated as it is now, right? It's gotten way harder. And I think that's a good thing. And so just over the years, as more competition came in and more, as I started to kind of build my agency and I guess master my craft, then, I think that created a bigger demand for people like me in the market too, right? So I looked at it as like, it was a good thing that it got more competitive and harder over the years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does Google give you the playbook or do you have to figure it out?
I mean, Google, they will try to steer you in the right direction or sometimes the wrong direction, I guess. But for the most part, it really comes down to practicing. And because I work with so many law firms, I have access to so much data. And we do a lot of experiments. I even have sites that are just truly sites that I just use for testing. And I take some of those sites, I leverage, some of the strategies that I want to prove a hypothesis, and I do, and then we will incorporate some of the lessons that we've learned into some of our client strategies as well.
I mean, I'd never thought about doing something like that. That's a really cool idea. Would you recommend that law firms, now they're not going to have access to as much data as you.
Sure.
Would you recommend that they have a separate site that they can play around with like that?
It's not a bad thing, because if it does work, right, you can have a second site that might serve as like a lead generation site for your firm. Right. So, it's certainly not a bad thing. Like some of the sites that I've built over the years, one is birthinjurylawyer.com, right? That's a powerful site that I do a lot of experimentation on as well. I had a couple other lead gen sites in Dallas that were like personal injury sites. And then there's a term called rank and rent, right? So you get it to rank and then you rent it out to a law firm. And so they basically become virtual assets. So there are certain things that you can do to monetize those sites if it's not just for your firm, but, maybe to rent it out to somebody else too.
Is that the same concept as the people that will sell like the 1-800 numbers that are really popular?
Similar, yeah, I guess because they own the asset. And then you're just kind of like renting or leasing that number. So very similar, right? So if I own a website that's ranking very well on Google and it's driving traffic and driving leads and cases, you as the owner of the website can never get fired, right? If anything, like you just find another tenant, right, that would take over the lease of that site. So
how has the development of AI changed the way you all have been approaching SEO or digital marketing?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been using like AI long before it became like a popular trend or term. We were using AI to reverse engineer top 3 ranking websites, so that we can figure out what was working, what wasn't. But nowadays, now that tools are a lot more accessible, we're using AI in all kinds of different ways. We've got engineers that are just AI, like that actually will go out and create tickets and fix things on websites. So we've got that. We're also taking websites and translating them into multiple languages using AI. It's a lot different than just using like Google Translate. This is where we actually preserve the entire SEO strategy on a website and we translate it. So all of the strategy, all of the links and everything kind of get indexed. And so you have a website that was not getting any Spanish traffic and all of a sudden there's 4,000 pages that we get indexed into Google. And now all of a sudden they've got to go out and hire like intake people like to kind of keep up with some of that demand, right? So there's all kinds of things. And it's just, this is the worst that AI will ever be, right? It's only going to continue to get better from here,
Someone had told me that their thought is that eventually it's just going to be agents going out searching websites and finding the right, like, let's say you're looking for an injury attorney. So, hey, find me the best injury attorney for my case and boom, go and find it. So how do you prepare for things like that?
I think what we're doing is we are just reverse engineering ChatGPT now, or Perplexity, right? Google AI overviews. So we're just spending a lot of time trying to understand what is feeding, those algorithms, so that when people are doing searches or just talking into their phone and asking ChatGPT, who's the best personal injury lawyer in Miami or whatever, that our clients have a better chance of ranking in those algorithms as well.
It's wild because I feel like Google has had such a massive lead just because of search. I mean, and even Perplexity, they've got the new comment browser, and I find it really interesting. One of the downsides of that browser, I can go to Google Chrome and I can just type in what I'm looking for, and I can just type in some keywords, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to type in a full sentence. But if I go into Comet, it tries to give me something. It thinks I'm like actually prompting it in a certain way. Below that, it might give me some search results, but it doesn't really do the same thing. So it's wild how Google has really trained us to search in a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And believe it or not, a lot of people don't like to change, right? So you will continue to have people that just are using Google, right? And don't even download ChatGPT, right? But you certainly want to be ahead of the curve and be at the forefront of technology for sure.
Do you feel like, that's a good segue because I wanted to ask you about this. Because do you feel like you're at the forefront of technology, or do you think that you will? I feel like we're just like, we're even trying to stay ahead of it, but I feel like we're still behind. So do you feel like you all are staying ahead of the curve as things are changing?
I'm at a point in my career where I try to keep up with change and technology. I went out to Stanford. I didn't have to do that. I got an executive MBA recently because that's where a lot of this AI technology is coming from. And so I just went out there and I studied it and I learned about it. So I'm proactively trying to keep up with this. But I'm also, I like to call this outsourcing genius, right? Where I'll bring in subject matter experts to come in and to teach us things, or to maybe build us technology or build us tools that we can leverage, and the lessons that we glean from these subject matter experts that we bring in. If successful, again, we'll basically leverage it across the board for all of our clients.
Right. I want to change gears a little bit because I want to talk to you about Hennessey Digital, because you fairly recently sold it, right?
I did. Yep.
And now you're on the board.
I am.
All right.
Yep.
And so, what's it like selling your baby? I feel like because you that's something you were growing and developing, and you put a bunch of time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears and all that.
Yeah.
And a lot of sacrifice. What was it like? I don't know if letting go is the right word, but essentially letting go.
Yeah, so I guess when you sell a business, it's a strategy, right? It just doesn't, in most cases, it doesn't just happen by chance, right? And so for us, we were going to take a 3-year journey because you run the business a little bit differently when you're prepping to sell. And so we were about 8 months into our 3-year journey when a private equity group came knocking at our door. And it didn't seem like it was the right time, but the private equity group checked what I like to say 3 boxes. And so the 3 boxes were, is it going to be a right fit for my clients? Because we've met with other private equity groups where if we were to sold to them, it just wouldn't have been a good solution for our clients. So that checked that box. Is it going to be a right fit for my staff? And so it seemed like it was going to be a perfect fit for them. And then the third box was, is it going to be a good solution for what I want in my life where I'm at? And so the beauty about this deal is it not only checked the 2 boxes for my staff and my clients, but for me, I feel like I've got so much more to give. So when you say just letting go of your baby, I'm still the CEO of Hennessey Digital. So I'm still in control. I am on the board. My company was always bootstrapped. And so I only had so much budget to bring to life some of the ideas that I've had, right? And my COO is like my no person, right? So like, because a lot of times entrepreneurs, they get sidetracked, right? It's like, I love SEO, right? That was the sidetrack, right? Let's build this, right? But those become distractions. And so my COO he keeps me on track. And so he'll say like, that's a great idea, Jason, but just not right now, right? Because maybe we don't have the budget to develop this new technology or bring this new idea to life. And so by bringing in private equity, it gave me access to so much more capital and resources. And so I'm excited for what the next 5-7 years looks like, having financial backing of the private equity group. And so it's just so much fun. It's just a different world that I'm living in right now. Mm-hmm.
It's awesome because you've brought on a lot of genius. I think that's great. A lot of intelligence. Has it changed the way you've thought about business in general, where if you were to start up another company today, or if you had the same knowledge that you have today that you were and you started again back in 2001, I guess, how would you have designed it differently? How would you have designed the company differently?
So, in the world of building a business, like if you go to sell, it's all about this thing called EBITDA, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just your profitability. So I think I would have probably just, there comes a point where when you're building a business, it's just like a lifestyle, right? In fact, there's probably a lot of people that are watching this podcast or listening to this podcast right now where you're at that stage of business where it is just a lifestyle, and that's perfectly acceptable. Having a lifestyle business is amazing, right? You could go out and take vacations with your family. You don't really want to delegate too much. You're more of kind of in control, right? And so for the first 3 or 4 years of my agency, it was just a lifestyle business, right? But then I'm like, you know what? If I really want to take this to the next level, I really need to kind of focus more on growth. And so for the next 5 years, I'd say, I was on growth mode. And so when you're on growth mode, you're not really focused on profitability, right? You're going out and you're hiring people, you're making money, you're finding out what is your zone of genius and how could I focus on that and delegate everything else to other people. And so when I was in growth mode, that's when we really started to kind of scale. I got a coach who helped me go from 5 million to 10 million. He's still my coach now, and he helped us get to now over 20 million. So knowing what your limitations are, right? I thought I was really good at SEO, but I wasn't a good CEO. At least that's what I thought. And it turns out to be true because I had a lot of things to learn there. And so, but if, answer your question, would I have done anything differently? Probably not. I probably would have not made some of the mistakes that I've made earlier on, which every business person makes mistakes and
Sure.
You learn from them. That's just kind of what gets you to the next level. But I think life is about the journey, right? It's not always the destination. And so you build scars and you learn from your failures and you just get back up. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right?
Yeah.
So
as long as you do learn from them, that's really
that's
important.
the key. Yep.
You mentioned mistakes. It's a good transition into something I want to ask you about. What are some mistakes that you see law firm owners making with their websites?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times people will go to a conference, right? And they get really inspired. Two things. A lot of people go to conferences and they get really inspired to take a lot of notes.
Lots of notes. Yeah.
And then they don't go home and take any action, right? So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes is like go home and just circle 2 or 3 things that you're going to go do and then just go home and take action, right? I don't think too many people take enough action. The second thing is sometimes you learn something from a conference and you go home and you just try to implement it and you might be implementing things wrong. Like for instance, back in the day, people heard, content is king. You got to be blogging. You got to be right. And so I've seen so many people make mistakes where they just go out and hire somebody to write content on their website and they're not really managing the process. They're just paying the bill every month. And the person that's writing the content is like totally making the topical authority of the website irrelevant to what they do, or they're just linking improperly to certain pages. Like, I'm not going to bore you with the technical complexities.
I'm okay with the technical stuff. That's fine.
Yeah. Like there's so much that you can do wrong. Like if you have too many pages that are optimized for Dallas car accident lawyer, right? You're cannibalizing things. And so so if anything, it's okay to go out and hire people to do things, but again, outsource this genius and bring somebody else in to audit the work of the people, right? Just to hold somebody else accountable, I'd say.
Do you have any strong opinions one way or the other on AI generated content?
Yeah, so I think there's a place for AI generated content. When it first came out, I was like, no, nobody should be doing this, right? But then Google kind of changed the rules. They went in and they actually changed some of their terms of service and stuff because they knew that people were going to be using AI, right? And so nowadays, we do use a lot of AI content at Hennessey Digital. Now, I wouldn't necessarily use AI content for my most important page on a website, like my car accident lawyer page or my personal injury lawyer page. But where you could use AI content is where we go after keywords that have zero search volume and zero competition. And so those that are listening are probably tell more. What do you mean about that? And so what I mean by that is there's a lot of opportunity where people are doing searches on Google where Google has never really seen those searches before. I can give you an example. I was working with a personal injury lawyer based in Florida. This personal injury lawyer didn't have the budget to compete with the likes of Morgan & Morgan, right? But they still needed to generate cases and they needed to make the phone ring. And so we just made him a subject matter expert on all things slip and fall. And so if we published a page on Google optimized for Fort Lauderdale slip and fall lawyer, it's not going to be competitive, right? Just because there's Morgan & Morgan who have invested millions of dollars into the SEO over their website. So what we did was we're okay, what are all the grocery stores? What are all the big box retail stores, right? And we started writing content for, did you get injured at Home Depot in Plantation, Florida? Did you slip and fall at Trader Joe's in Coral Gables, Florida, right? And so by publishing enough of that content, we're able to actually not only make the phone ring, but now they're actually ranking very well in a lot of the ChatGPT searches and things like that. And so he gets multiple cases every month as a result of that strategy,
Nice.
And it's all AI.
I like thinking outside the box too. I think that's pretty cool.
Yep.
So at one point, there was sort of a trend, it seemed where long form content was doing really, really well.
Yep.
And I haven't heard a lot about that recently. Is that still the case, or is that not the case? Or is there a limit? Is there an amount that's too much?
Yeah, that's interesting. So there was a term that was coined, and it was called the skyscraper technique, right? And so the skyscraper technique in the world of SEO is, it's if you're in New York City and you look up, right, you're what is the tallest building in New York City? It's the Empire State Building, right? Oh, the World Trade Center, right? And so that was the thought process with content, right? So if you see somebody ranking on Google for a term and they had 6,000 words of content, well, if you want to rank higher than you just go and write 8,000 words of content, right? And then the next person is all right, I'm going to write 10,000, 12,000, right? And so that became this trend, and Google was rewarding that behavior for a while, just because you're giving them more food to index and spider. But then it got to the point where if you did a search for blueberry pancake recipe, right, you've got the whole history of blueberries and this and that, right, just because that was what was working at the time. And then eventually, Google tweaked the algorithm, and then they started to penalize websites that was too long. But I think the thing is look at the top 3 results for any search term that you want to rank for, study them, and just kind of see what's working, right? So
It makes me think of whenever I look for a recipe, it drives me nuts. And I go on there, I click on the website, the link, and then luckily the good ones have the jump to recipe button.
Yes.
But otherwise it does have all of, I wonder if it's from those days where they have just so much content about things. I don't want to know about the history of blueberry pancakes. I want to know about the recipe that you promised me in the search results.
Yes.
That's what I want. Yep. That's so funny.
And you got to click through 7 ads just to kind of get to the recipe. I agree.
Oh, the worst websites are the ones where you're scrolling through and it keeps jumping because the video is loading. And it's and you got the ad. It's just, it just drives me crazy. That's nuts.
So true.
All right. So I don't know if this question is a good question or a bad question, but
Yeah.
I've always wondered this. Is there a difference between a blog page content and a page content where you got a blog? Is one more valuable than the other one?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's just kind of interchangeable. It depends on what you're doing. I like to say that if you have a blog, that should really be your voice. So like, here's my thoughts about this case, or here's, whatever it is, like, here's the things that we're doing in the community, right? I think, that's good. I think everything else should be off of the root itself. So like your practice area pages, right, should be off your root. That shouldn't be in a blog subfolder. FAQs, right? Sometimes people will like nestle FAQs under their blog, which it's a fine strategy. I like to nestle those under like something called FAQs, right? Just so that's a little bit more specific. So it's really a preference, I guess. But once you kind of set it up from the beginning, you kind of have to go with what you chose.
Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is there a structure that works better than others in what you found?
Not necessarily. I mean, you might have, like if you have a blog, sometimes when you write content and it's about Dallas car accident, like sometimes because you have in a blog subfolder, Google won't penalize you for having a cannibalization, right? Because they know that that's not as important as what you have closer to the root of the domain. So I wouldn't say that, one's better than the other. I think where people sometimes will make mistakes is if they just use the general settings within WordPress when you get it and it has like numbers in the URL, or, the URLs are all choppy and there's, different parameters that shouldn't be in there. I just think the URL should be short and clean. Yeah.
So in the URL, just make sure I want to make sure I understand this.
Yeah.
So let's say it starts with the numbers. So
Yeah.
it creates, Hennessey Digital, .com /
Yeah.
and then a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
Would you change that to, let's say the article is about, should you use AI to create content?
Yeah.
So you would change that URL to match whatever the title is?
Yeah. So in that case, if that's like a question, right, that would be basically nestled under, I'd have a link at the top of the website that says FAQs, right? You click on FAQs and it would be Hennessey.com /FAQs / should -AI -be - right? Using all of the words and then ending it with a trailing slash. Yes.
All right. So if you were to look at just your average site, someone that's not using a company to help with their SEO,
Yeah.
right? You're just looking at it. How often? So it's let's say it's a DIYer, someone that's just whenever they can, they do something with their site. On average, if you just to go to that site and you start tweaking little things, how much improvement could you actually make just right off the bat because they've made so many mistakes with it?
So it just depends, right? So if the site is relatively new and hasn't been around for a while and nobody has ever really linked to it, I can go in and make all the best practice optimizations to the website itself, and it's probably not going to, make the site perform that much better, right? If a website has been around for years and somebody has just neglected the technical components of a website, I can come in and I could do a lot of damage and really make the site perform a lot better, right? By going in and just implementing best practices, right? So what really matters is, the power or the engine of the site, and that comes through years and years of people linking back to it. So that's basically, I guess, the best way to kind of phrase that.
Are there any quick wins that people get when it comes to the backlinks that they're not thinking of?
There's a lot of things. Like for one, sometimes people change their URLs and either they don't know that they've changed it incorrectly or the previous agency just made a change. So like, for example, like there is a difference between a www domain versus somebody that chooses to not use the www, right? There's a difference between somebody that has HTTPS in their URL versus people that don't have HTTPS, right? And so what happens is because it's been changed so many times over the years, sometimes like the domain will go from like HTTP without the S, right? www, and then it gets redirected to the non-www, which then so what happens is it's creating all of these redirect chains, and it's so easy to fix that. And what happens is when a domain gets redirected like that, you lose about 10% of the link equity each time it gets redirected, right?
Yeah. So
sometimes when I come in, I audit a website, I'm like, oh my God, we call them hops, right? There's like 4 hops happening. So like you're already diluting like 40% of the link equity that's coming into the website. So let's go in and let's fix this, right? And then, a lot of times you'll see like a nice lift as a result of that.
Mm-hmm. Is that fix done? How does that, I wonder, like, where is the fix done? Is it done at the site, your site, or is it done at their site?
No, it's done at your site, right? So these are links. This is what we would call as the canonical version of your URL.
Okay.
So you're basically, it's like when people go to, let's just say Hennessey.com, if they type in www.hennessey.com, I don't use the www, right? So it gets redirected to the non-www.
Gotcha. Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying now. Yep.
And then, but I might have links coming into the website from my Yahoo or whatever, right? A lot of times, like I see stuff like happen where like for whatever reason, like for years and years and years, they've used the www, and then they pay somebody to redesign their website and they just elect to use the non-www. And now they just diluted like 10% of all of their link equity. And so they've got to go to like all of their profiles, like their Facebook, their LinkedIn, their Avo, right? And actually change the links so that you get rid of that hop. It'll still get there anyway. And if you're okay with the loss of link equity, that's fine. But as an SEO, I like to preserve all of that. And so it might be easier just to revert it and then just go back to the version that it used to be.
Wow. I think that part alone is probably worth the value of listening to this part. That's probably a lot of people probably missing that part of it.
Of course they do. Like they don't study this stuff, right? This is like I'm speaking a foreign language, but sometimes it's a language that Google speaks,
Yeah, that's incredible. Is there a way of getting backlinks faster than just requesting it directly from the site owner?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of strategies to get backlinks. If you're first getting started, I like to say you want to get all of the foundational links. What do I mean by foundational links? Your Better Business Bureau link, your Chamber of Commerce link, setting up a LinkedIn profile, setting up a Facebook, right? All the foundation stuff. In fact, I wrote a book called Law Firm SEO, where if anybody's listening to this podcast and you've gotten this far, right? I think we're about 40 minutes into it now. I'd be happy to send you a free copy. So just send me an email, jason@hennessey.com, and I'll get you a free copy. And the reason why I say that is because in the book, I spent so much time reverse engineering link strategies for law firms that I've got a whole chapter dedicated to the foundational links that every law firm should have. And so I would start there.
Do you have a landing page for that? Because we can put it in the show notes too.
I think so. Yeah. So I don't know it off the top.
We can get it afterwards.
Yeah. But we'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good because that's one of those things where I think is everyone going to get something out of it? No.
Yeah.
I think most people should probably hire a company like you, like that you have, but there's plenty of people that try to do that stuff on their own.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Have you seen something I was looking for whenever AI was really catching steam? I was like, okay, is there a site that will help me get backlinks, like an AI? I think that'd be amazing. I've seen a few that have tried.
Get bad links, you said?
No, backlinks.
Oh,
yeah, no. I may have said bad links.
There's sites like that. That's called negative SEO.
Backlinks.
Okay.
Backlinks.
Okay.
Have you seen any AI websites that help get good backlinks?
I think a lot of people are leveraging AI now just to do quicker outreach, right? To have better engagement with site owners and to negotiate better rates to try to, because they say that, in Google, you're not supposed to pay for links, right? But I think every link that you get is kind of somewhat of a form of payment, right?
Sure.
When you advertise on Avo, you're paying Avo, right? You're paying for the link, right? So there's a whole strategy around of reaching out and building relationships with different bloggers and maybe mommy bloggers, or just setting up legal directories and stuff like that. But I haven't really seen anything that will just automatically, like using AI, get you like good links. Sure. You know, usually the good links that are hard to get are earned, you know, mostly through PR, right? Yeah.
For a short time, at least, I don't know if it's still a thing, posting on Reddit was something that was actually pretty decent.
Sure.
And is that still a good strategy, or is that something old news?
It is. So like, I always like to say this, like if you are doing a search for some of the keywords that you think your clients are searching for. So in my case, you know, maybe it's law firm SEO agency, right? You know, that would be a term that would be important to me. I look at like the top 20 results. And so if there's a Reddit section that's in the SERPs and it talks about like, who's the best agency for law firms, I might go and comment in there and leave a link back to me, right? I will also study the top 20, 30 results. And if there's like a directory that's nestled in there, I'll make sure that I'm advertising on that directory. If there's a list of the top 20 SEO companies for lawyers, I might reach out to the person that owns that blog to see what can I do to maybe also get added to that, right? So success leaves clues. And so if you're listening to this, go do a search for what is important to you. Look at the first 2-3 pages of Google, and anywhere, especially more important for the first page of Google, right? Or the top 3 results, because you probably will get business as a result of, and it changes, but if, let's just say FindLaw is ranking number 2 for your term, right? There's probably a good reason to basically advertise with FindLaw, because, you know, not only will you get the link, but you might also get some business and phone calls as a result of it in that case, right? But it's different for every different keyword in every industry, you know? Something
that has frustrated me for years is understanding the interplay between social media and SEO and your overall strategy. So how does social media affect SEO, if it does at all?
It used to be like it really didn't have much impact. It was kind of like church and state, I guess, if you will. But nowadays, you know, Google is indexing a lot of search results for social media too. So it just comes down to, you know, you want to kind of be active on as many of the platforms as you can. There's different audiences in each of the platforms. If you're just going to set it up to be setting it up, you know, probably doesn't make too much sense. But it might make sense to maybe bring in like an intern that, you know, is going to run your social media for you, and you're going to schedule a day like today, right, where you record a bunch of content and you're going to kind of leverage that same content, all the different social platforms, right? Hopefully you're doing it to kind of build a personal brand over time, and you're not just doing it just to leverage it for SEO, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. With that, when it comes to videos, is it better to upload natively to the site or use something like YouTube and use the link, embed it?
So I think that's something that I'm not a fan of, is when people take a video, they upload it to YouTube, and then they embed the YouTube video embed to their website. A lot of people do that, and I can see why. It's because, okay, great, I've got the video here and it's easy, just take it. But what happens is like you're working so hard to get people to your website. And so you might have spent $250 for somebody to come to your website just with like a paid ad or something, right? And so now they're on your website, they go to click your video, they accidentally click it, you know, twice, and now they're over on YouTube land. And next thing you know, they're watching the new Taylor Swift music videos, right? And so you've worked so hard to get them there. So I don't like to use YouTube embeds on websites. I certainly want to post the video on YouTube too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't post it there. But use a service like Wistia or Vimeo. There's other places that you can upload your content where when they come to the website, it'll stay native to it, and there's no way to exit off of the website if you make the video bigger or smaller.
Oh, that's I didn't realize that was one of the benefits of using Vimeo. Or Wistia. That's nice.
Yeah.
Is there a certain structure of a post or a page that you should follow. And because I've seen where some people talked about, okay, you should, have this as as like basically a question as the title or whatever the title should be, and then have it structured a certain way, and then maybe you have certain sources underneath that. Is there a certain way of structuring it nowadays that makes the most sense, that might get you the best results?
Yeah. So the answer is yes. Usually you want to find a term that is going to be the main topic for this particular page. So I don't know, let's just use an example, Seattle criminal defense lawyer, right? So that's going to be your Seattle criminal defense lawyer page. So that's the page that you want to nominate for this keyword. You don't want to have any other content on your website that is optimized for Seattle criminal defense lawyer, because then it cannibalizes it. So then from there, a lot of times like the first, I guess let's just call it above the fold. That's where you really want to kind of capture people's attention, right? A lot of times people will just like hire somebody to write content and they talk about the statistics of, DUIs or criminal defense, right? Nobody wants to read about that, right? I mean, somebody came to your website, right, because they're in trouble. It might be like one of the hardest parts of their life right now. So like start with like some empathy, right? Like if you're on this page, there's probably a good chance that you are, you're looking for somebody to get you out of, an unfortunate situation, right? Then I would even maybe just put a video there above the fold too, because what people don't realize is that when people are Googling things, like Google is measuring the time in which people click over from Google onto a website. And so they call this pogo sticking, right? So if they're on your website and they're only there for like 6 seconds and they go back, that's sending a signal to Google that your site didn't satisfy the intent of that search. So if you have a video there, that's one way to kind of keep people sticky, right? It keeps them on the page a little bit longer. But the other side is it's also like opening up the people to your personality too, right? Like people like to do business with those that they like and trust, right? And so that's a good way for you to kind of capture their attention and spend 40 seconds with them. Not longer. They're not going to watch an 8-minute video, but maybe like a minute-long video. And then from there, then you want to, structure the content so that you would like a newspaper, right? You've got your heading tags, right? So you have your H1 tag, and you have your heading tag 2, heading tag 3. And then from there, there is a science to it. Again, go look at the sites that are ranking already. And then, then in these cases, you could use ChatGPT, right? You can say, hey, how could I make my site similar to this, but different? Like, what do you recommend? That would give me the greatest chance of actually ranking, right? So leverage tools if you don't have someone like me that's been studying it for so long.
All right. So I'm sure there's probably a lot of people listening or watching. They're like, oh no, I've got all this content. It's, Scranton personal injury attorney. It's a bunch of pages, and think, oh, I need to go delete all this content.
Yeah.
If they do have a bunch of those pages, does it make sense to leave the best performing page and delete the rest? Or is there cause that seems risky.
Yeah, you're going into surgery, right?
Yeah.
You're actually bringing your website into like the operating room,
right?
And you can kill the patient if you do it incorrectly. So if you don't have the core competency or expertise to do that yourself, if it's not a language that you speak, go out and find somebody to kind of walk you through that. Because if you do kill your website, it's very hard. Like Google is not as forgiving. Like it would take months to kind of recover in some cases, just because like that's just the way it works, right? You accidentally delete, 60 pages, right? Because you think it's the best thing to do. But for whatever reason, like Google was favoring this other page instead. And so anyway, so I would definitely consult with somebody that can maybe help you with that process for sure.
You know what I find interesting about you is that I want to get into your mindset a little bit, because I've talked to a lot of SEOs over the years, and a lot of them are hesitant to give a lot of the information you just gave. They're really resistant to it. Or sometimes they're in the same position as you, where they run the company, but they don't have the expertise. So they're not able to really
talk like that.
And I went like, where does that mindset come from? Why are you so willing to talk about it?
I live in a world of abundance, I guess, right? And that was the reason why I wrote my book, Law Firm SEO, was because I got so sick and tired of people getting taken advantage of, right? I mean, it's the truth. Like, we'll just tell it as it is. There's so many people that will reach out to an attorney and they'll get them to agree to give them $3,000 or $5,000 a month, right? And, either they're taking advantage of them, right? Because the lawyer doesn't speak that language, or they're just incompetent and they don't even realize that they don't have the skills to be able to get that website ranking, right? So it's kind of like experimental together, I guess, and they're just not being truthful about it. So I got so tired of kind of getting lumped into those buckets, because I could have like a client that loves me, that introduces me to like somebody, and they'll still be suspicious,
Sure.
just because it's the industry that I'm in. And so I got so tired of that. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to like spend the next 2 years and I'm just going to write a book that educates and empowers lawyers to make the best decision for their firm. And I want to write it in such a way that they don't need me. Like, if you read the book, like, you can go out and you can do this on your own, right? And so I did it just because, like, I get, I don't know, pride, or I get benefit by seeing others succeed, regardless of if it's hiring my agency or not. In fact, I would run Facebook campaigns. Like I just mentioned on this show, like if you're watching this video, I'll send you a book for free, right? There's probably a lot of people listening to this that probably won't hire me, and that's perfectly fine, right? But, if I give the book away and they read it and they can help feed their family and put their kids through college as a result of just the tips that I give, hey, like, that's the world I want to live in.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Where does that mindset come from? Like, where, like the abundance mindset that you talked about you have? Because I think that's a great philosophy. That we do the same thing with Max Law. That's why we just like, listen, we'll show you everything. I think it's kind of like the rising tides. But I wonder where your mindset comes from.
I guess it probably just comes from upbringing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like being raised right, humble beginnings, right? So knowing how hard it is to kind of work to get something, a world of gratitude. So I think when you walk around with that type of energy, it just becomes part of your DNA, I guess.
Yeah.
Help
me understand something. I'm gonna change gears a little bit. Mm-hmm. There was something. I get, because we talked about a lot of companies we've been doing this since 2016. So like a lot of SEO companies, a lot of digital marketing companies, and I'll get this scenario. I can't tell you how many times someone will come to me. Let's say, Jim. Mm-hmm. It's not Jim hacking. I'm just saying Jim.
Yeah.
A Jim, just random name I picked. So let's say a Jim comes to me and says, "Hey, I just went with SEO company A, been with them a year or two, and I'm not getting any results."
Yeah.
And then they'll go over to SEO company B, and they'll get results almost instantly. And to me, that makes no sense, because I feel like there are certain principles that most of you probably apply. And there's people like you that you get really creative and you do beta testing and things.
Yep.
But I can't imagine it's that's making all the difference.
Yeah.
So help me understand how that works, because to me, I'm like, wow, that's weird how you could go to SEO company A, get nothing.
Yeah.
SEO B almost gets instant results. So help me understand that.
So, a lot of variables there. But I will say that, sometimes it comes down to just mismanaging expectations from the start, right? So maybe company A, says, hey, we can get you ranking and it's $2,000 per month, when realistically that's not the proper budget, right? So could be a lot of mismanagement of expectations. The other thing, it could be that they're just not tracking things properly too, right? Which is easy to do. The other thing is that, maybe they are just not competent enough to kind of get the results, right? So company B comes in, and if it's a good company, a good agency, maybe they make some of those tweaks that I talked about with just the redirects, right? There's a lot of things that you can do. If a site's been active for 10 years, like I said, a lot of times you can just come in and you just audit the website and you fix, like you spend 30 days, 45 days just fixing the best practice principles of SEO for the website, and you might see like a nice lift, right? Other times it just might be making some tweaks to like their Google local listing, right? Where you kind of go in and it's like, oh, you've got the wrong category, or you're not leveraging this, or you need to go and upload a couple more photos here. Or, sometimes it just might be something that could push the needle a little bit faster, where the other company might have been blinded by that. So I think, that could be circumstances, there.
What's the topic that divides SEOs the most? Like, what is the thing where you all disagree? There's like so much disagreement amongst all the SEO companies.
I would say disagreement. SEO is like an art form, right? So like if you give me a paint brush and a blank canvas, like my art's going to be a lot different than some of my competitors, right? I think we'll probably all paint a nice picture and maybe sell our picture for $5,000 each, right? So I think, sometimes, the way in which you kind of structure a website might be different, right? Because it's just a different art form of doing things. But I think, the one thing that I think we all agree upon is that links are the currency on the web, right? And so like, I want to try to get my clients good links, and my competitors are reverse engineering the links that I get, and they're going out and getting their clients those links. And so at the end of the day, it's just like a battle of links, really. So
how do you win that battle? Because that we're going to get it back into backlinks, because that is something that maybe it's just time, and maybe it just takes more time, because you do have some websites where they've got so many tens of thousands of links, and so you're trying to compete with those. And is it just a matter of time? Is that what it is?
It's a matter of time and strategy. So like, it's not a matter of like getting the most links. Sometimes if you get a link from the proper website that's relevant to what you do, that link could be way better than 300 links, right? So like when I'm reverse engineering link strategies for some of my clients, I'm always looking at like, what are the top ranking websites in some of the toughest markets? Like, what links do they have, right? So I spend a lot of time reverse engineering like New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles. And I do that not just because like I've got clients in those markets. I do it just because I'm looking for the insights. And so I recently discovered that some people were getting links from like Google and Apple. And I'm like, how the heck did a law firm get a link from Google and Apple? And it's their top two links, right? And I'm like, man, this is gold. So I reverse engineered it, figured it out that the way in which they got a link from Google and Apple was they had an app, right? And so once you have an app, right, that's part of the process. Okay, great. So you have an app, you got to submit the app to Google and Apple. But then you have to try to get that app indexed. And so how do you get that app indexed? And so the secret that I learned, I'm giving so much here.
This is gold right here, yes.
Is to do a couple things, right? So in the footer of your website, say download our app, right? And who cares if anybody ever uses the app? This is just a link building strategy here, right? And so now you have links from your homepage, which you know is going to get crawled and indexed. And so those links are going to follow over, which creates a better chance of your two links getting indexed. Also from the app itself, right? So when they go to your app page on Android or on Apple, you want to link to the privacy policy of your website, right? Because that's the link that they see. This is like a secret here, right? So they
wonderful.
Link right from the privacy policy. And then from there, write a press release on like a site like PR Newswire, and then link both to your website and the app pages, Android and Apple, and then maybe post about it on LinkedIn too. Yeah.
Jason just made you a lot of money.
Those are great links.
Send the check or hire Hennessey Digital.
There you go.
That's awesome. Hennessey.com. About Hennessey Digital, what are all the services that you all offer? I mean, you obviously have the SEO, but it's Hennessey Digital maybe for a reason. So what is everything that you do?
So I'd say like our core competency has been and will always be SEO, right? I think that's really what we're world class at. But we've gotten really good at PPC over the years. Just when you have clients and you're spending millions of dollars per month, you're learning very valuable lessons, so because we work with so many lawyers, it's trial and error, right? The client number one, we had to do tests and learn from those mistakes, right? So that client 4 years later doesn't have to make the same mistakes that we made with client number one, right? So it's kind of like an instant head start.
Yeah.
Whether it's putting in negative keywords or different strategies that work better. So PPC is also something that we do. We build websites, we design websites, and we do a little bit of paid social, but that's about it. We don't really do too much more than that.
Is there a successful mix of SEO, PPC, and maybe Facebook ads or social media ads? Is there like a mix that makes sense?
There is. There are different channels. SEO is going to be the one that that you own, right? So it's built upon your website. That's an asset to you. Year after year, as you're making investments, it'll continue to pay dividends for you. PPC, there was a law firm that was trying to sell to one of my clients. And so this law firm was built just on a PPC campaign. And so they spent probably $250,000 per month on PPC. And that was kind of the whole law firm, right? It was that was it. There wasn't an SEO strategy. There wasn't a nice website. And so when this law firm asked me my opinion, should I buy this firm? I'm like, well, all you're buying is their PPC strategy.
So just take their PPC strategy.
You know what I mean? Why are you going to pay a multiple of EBITDA for just the PPC strategy, right? So but don't get me wrong, if the PPC channel is working, continue to invest in that channel, right? And same thing with Facebook and Meta, right? If you're running campaigns and you're having success with it, continue to invest in that. But the one asset that you own, right, which is your SEO strategy.
I don't know if you have an answer to this or not, but I am wondering, what is the way forward when it comes to, you have all the LLMs popped up, and let's focus on Gemini. Yeah. Because I'm really wondering, I know that they've added the new AI tab where you can get an AI overview or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, okay, what's the future of reviews? What's the future of maps? The 3-pack? What's the future of ads?
Yeah.
Do you know the way forward yet? Have they given you any sort of
I think at the end of the day, right, Google makes most of its money by serving up ads, right? Yeah. So I'd imagine that, we'll get accustomed to using Google the same way that we've always used Google. I think the real estate will change a little bit. They might start to blend in some of the local listings within some of the AI overviews, which will have ads in there. So I think Google will continue to make sure that they're monetizing the traffic. But nobody knows or can foresee the future of what's going to happen with Google. I think you just have to kind of keep up with it, adapt to the change, and be the first to reverse engineer, what's working, what is the new Google, right?
It definitely makes me wonder though, because about the origins of Google, where they had hit that decision point. Okay, do we charge for this service or do we do ads? And it does make me wonder if they're going to start to shift away from ads and more you pay for the service, kind of like you do with ChatGPT. It definitely makes me wonder if that's what's coming.
Could be. I mean, that seems to be the model for ChatGPT right now. How many people are spending $20 or $200 per month, right? And I think that's probably the best investment that I make all month long.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. I think I posted, how much would you be willing to pay, right, for ChatGPT if they increase the price, And
they haven't hit the limit yet.
That's what I'm saying. $20 is a joke, right? I might pay $1,000 a month. Don't let them hear that, right? But that's how powerful it is.
We'll just bleep this part of the episode.
So no, I don't know. I don't know if Google is going to change their business model, but maybe. You never know.
All right, so I'm going to ask you something. I wouldn't ask most SEO people, but I'm going to ask you because I feel like you have fun with it.
Yeah.
Do you practice what you preach when it comes to your site? I do wonder. And who does your SEO?
Yeah. So I neglected my own SEO for years, as most people do, right? You know, because you're so busy like working on clients' sites, right? At least that's the excuse that most people use. And it was partially true. But then I'm like, you know what? Like I got to take my own SEO seriously. So about maybe like 2.5 years ago, I got laser focused. And so I developed the actual SEO strategy on our website. And so I did just what I would do with our clients, right? We built out a content strategy. I recorded videos. We built links to the website. I probably spend $7,000-8,000 a month just on links to Hennessey.com.
Wow.
Just so that, you know, when you're doing searches that you find us, whether you're searching for law firm SEO or law firm PPC, keywords like that. Because my competitors are, you know, paying for a lot of that traffic, you know, with PPC. And the reason why I wrote my book and I called it Law Firm SEO was just because like I wanted to have a knowledge panel there. So if you were to Google Law Firm SEO right now, like there's actually like a big red photo of my book, right? With people that are actually leaving reviews. And meanwhile, my competitors are paying like $60-70 a click. Also, I built links to the Amazon page.
Oh, nice.
Right?
Smart.
So like now I have the Amazon page ranking. I've got Hennessey.com ranking. I also have Jason Hennessey ranking. I write for National Law Review and I'll optimize an article there so that I have a chance of ranking for that, right? So I try to like leverage every piece of real estate that I can. You know, when people do that search, it might rank on Target.com or Barnes & Noble too, you know what I mean? So like it was just a strategy and it worked.
All right, so before we wrap up, I do want to hear about your health journey because you look great, you look fantastic.
Thank you.
Said you actually said it's part of the journey, and I want to hear about the health part of it.
Yeah, so for years and years and years, I was chasing wealth, neglecting my health, and so you know I got to the point where like I didn't even recognize myself in the mirror, and so I'm like, you know what? I got to change this, right? And actually, I think it wasn't just that I got to change this. I went to the doctor, and so the doctor's like, I've got good news and bad news for you. He goes, you know, the bad news is that you're pre-diabetic, right? Your A1C is really high, and it's either you're going to have to take medication your whole life, or you're just going to have to like lose 50 pounds, right? Easier said than done.
Sure.
Right? And so, but when I go in on something, I'm all in. And so I'm like, all right, you know, I was always an athlete in high school. I kind of didn't feel like myself anyway. I kind of just let myself go. And so I'm like, you know what, I'm all in. I'm going to just kind of focus on my health. And so, you know, change my diet, change my exercise. And so just kind of went on a journey and, you know, and then it becomes motivational, right? You like lose 3 pounds, you're like, yes, right? You lose 5 pounds, you're like, yes, right? And eventually you look at yourself in the mirror and you see somebody completely different again, right? Somebody that you're proud of. And so, yeah, I think I've lost like, I don't know, like 70 pounds over the past like 3 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So
what's cool is that you've got some kiddos and they get to see it too. And they get to see like, oh, like dad, look what dad did. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Really cool. So
now it's balance between health and wealth, right? You know, so.
All right. So last question, and I could talk to you a long time because it's just, I enjoy it, but all good things must come to an end.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, I feel like the earth is like moving under our feet so much with technology and digital marketing in general. So I wonder if you have any words of wisdom for all of us law firm owners going forward as things continue to change, and they will continue to change even more. So I wonder if you have any words of wisdom for us.
I think, you know, just continuously be a student, right? A student of life, right? And so change is going to happen, right? You're going to either embrace it or you're going to kind of like neglect it. And so a lot of people just, they don't keep up with change. And so, you know, learn a little bit about everything, right? Just become a novice. You don't want to become an expert in anything. Like become an expert in the law, right? That's kind of where you feed your family, right? but gain enough insights that you can actually make good decisions on behalf of your firms, whether it's hiring the right people, engaging the right agency, paying for the right tools, knowing when, people are being a little dubious, in the world, because there's a lot of that too.
A lot of experts these days.
So many, right? And so just kind of educate and empower yourself. And I think you might find other passions, right? You might get really good at leveraging AI, right? But I would just embrace the change. And the most important thing is just to take action, like we talked about earlier. You can create a future that wasn't going to exist if you take action. Yeah. In fact, this podcast wouldn't have existed, right? Because I think I registered as just a person that was coming to the conference. Somebody seen that I registered. You took action, reached out to me.
Yep.
Hey, would you like to be on the podcast? I said yes, right? And so you created a future that wouldn't have existed if you didn't take action, right? So
sure. Yeah, we saw it, and I was like, instantly, okay, let's interview him. I'd love to have him on. So it's someone we wanted to have you on for a while. So.
Well, I'm honored. Yeah, I appreciate it so much.
Jason Hennessey, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.